Hey, friends, did you know it was recently Sleep Awareness Week? Little secret, we didn't know either. But we are using this opportunity to dive into sleep, rest, and fatigue. It is one of the most influential aspects, especially when dealing with autoimmune conditions. But how much do we need, really? And how do we fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and just get more sleep in general without turning out the lights earlier? So come with us as we dive into this insightful but fun conversation about one of my most favorite topics, sleep and rest. Let's go.
Hey, it's always good to see you, Karin. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. I'm very excited about today's topic because it's one of my most favorite topics, and I'm sure a lot of people's sleep, rest, and fatigue with autoimmune diseases. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes,
Are you
so
well
much.
rested today? Do you feel like you're good with sleep? How do you feel about this topic in general?
Today I feel really rested. Sleep is something I view as a tool. I don't quite love it. I sometimes wish I could do without it just so I want to keep going, which is my problem. But I think it's really something that I've had like a up and down relationship with along my lupus journey. It's like this whole notion of like resting and fatigue can be such a beast.
Yeah, well, and I think it's probably one of the most critical factors in how we feel as for every month, but
Right.
especially with autoimmune diseases, fatigue and just our bodies need to take time to recover.
How much your body repairs itself while you sleep. And
Yeah.
it took so much time for that to really get through my skull to be like, hey, a big part of you learning how to live with lupus is going to bed, getting a lot of rest. That's essential in my estimation.
Yeah, so you said going to bed and getting a lot of rest. So
Yeah.
let's first decipher what's the difference between sleep, rest, and fatigue, because there's
Yes.
big differences between all of them.
No doubt about it. So it's funny you bring this up because I was just talking to a group of high schoolers in their biology class about sleep and fatigue. They're doing a whole unit on the immune system. And so I was talking it was really fun. I was doing some like ambassador work for LFA, and I was talking with these kids, and I was saying essentially fatigue is not like being sleepy or tired, right? Because I have had moments, maybe you've had moments, Karen, where I have been awake, like wide awake, but fatigue would not allow me to do anything, right? I just had no energy to do regular household activities, much less go to work or take care of my family. And so all I could do was just allow myself to rest. Even if I was awake, even if I wanted to go up, go out and do something, I just had to allow my body to rest. Fatigue to me is like the like in the bones kind of tired versus like sleepiness is something we all experience at some point every day. All of us will yawn at some point today. And so sleepiness is just something that is a part of everyday life. And I think being tired, that to me is now, especially in our time period, I think the phenomenon of us being overstimulated can lead to a lot of tiredness.
You say sleep and rest, and sometimes you just need to rest, but in those cases, it's like your body is working so hard that
Right.
even if you have, let's even say 10 hours of sleep, there's a lot of times where I
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah. Seriously. Right.
Yeah. But like you can have enough sleep, but to your point, you feel tired and
Yeah.
there's just not, it's in your bones and it feels like there's no escaping it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it can be really uh overwhelming to know like, oh, I'm going to bed at 7 p.m. tonight and I'm not even gonna set an alarm. I'm just gonna let myself sleep. and to wake up and be exhausted, I've often wondered, this is probably not the best term for like, biologically speaking. I've just wondered about my background apps. Like what's running so high in my body where no matter if I slept 10 hours like what you're describing, I'm still exhausted. Something is wrong in my mind. And I've just always wondered, that's lupus just being hyperactive at that point. If I get all of that rest and there's to no avail, I'm still exhausted.
Well, I think with our immune systems, and you're dealing with infection or any sort of illness,
Hmm.
your body's in overdrive. The check
Yes.
engine light is on,
Hmm.
and it just needs time. I'll never forget, it was Christmas,
Hmm.
and I literally slept in my parents' living room chair the entire day while people opened up gifts and did their
Yeah.
thing. And my dad was like, "Should we wake her up?" It's like, no,
No.
like I just needed to rest. But in my situation, being newly diagnosed, my lupus was not under control.
Right.
And little did I know, Chris, that was the time when I had blood clots in a blood
Come.
clot in my leg and in my lungs, and my
Yeah.
body was fighting so hard.
Right.
And now that's a very extreme
Of
case.
course. Of course.
But the point is, with autoimmune diseases, our bodies are constantly working so
Mhm.
hard that we're just going to need more rest and recovery time when our diseases are active and we're
Yeah.
in the thick of it.
Yeah, that's the truth. And allowing yourself and having the ability, whether it's like community or other forms of resource, to actually take that rest. Because I think part of the problem is when you don't think you can afford to rest. And that's what makes something like lupus so much worse.
Yeah, but we can never not afford to rest.
That's the truth. That's absolutely true. If you don't rest, when you see all those check engine lights coming going on, you're gonna be forced to rest at some point.
Yeah. So, how do you think about rest when you're not sleeping? What are you doing to
Oh,
rest?
so for me, my favorite form of rest is to play a video game. I like to play sports video games so much, and uh, I will. So, for example, on a day like today, where my calendar is really full, I will at the end of the day just sit there. Like I put the boys to sleep. I'll just play one game of like NBA 2K in my mind, and I learned. It's gonna feel like a commercial for PlayStation. But I've learned that I can play my Spotify through the PlayStation, and so I'll put on like Earth, Wind and Fire or Roy Ayers or like a group like that, artists like that from back in the day. I'm listening to that and just chilling and just playing my game, and I'm just floating. And there have been many times where, let's say it's after I've given a sermon and I'm kind of tired, but it's like 1 p.m. I'll say, hey, just gonna play my game for a little bit, put on my Roy Ayers, playing, and that's my nap. I don't enjoy going into my bed and taking a nap because it reminds me of being sick. It reminds me of when I had no choice but to live in my bed. I don't want to do that. I will sleep there at the end of the night, but if it's 2 p.m., I really would rather like just sit there and play 2K or something. What I've now learned, and it's really like humbling myself, is when I'm super tired, like beyond regular tired towards exhaustion, I'll say like, forget all this pride stuff. I'm going to lay down in my bed, and that's when I know I'm like super duper tired. Is when even if like a NBA game is on, Timberwolves will play the Knicks or something, and I'm still like, no thanks. As much as I want to see Ant Edwards play, I'm going to bed. Like I still do that. That's when I know I'm very very tired.
When you're so tired and it's like, I just got to go to bed, I got to turn off the
Yeah,
lights. How long or did it take you a while to get to that point on your journey with lupus to be like, I don't have a choice anymore?
absolutely years. This was not an early lesson for me. It took me so long. It took me so long, Karen. Just because I think I and maybe this resonates with other people. I found a lot of self-worth in doing. Like I felt like my doing a lot of things made me feel good. And so And I think for the most part, I was doing things I really enjoyed. It wasn't like I was just busy for busyness sake, but I really found a lot of satisfaction in saying, "Oh, I gotta take care of these things," like challenges. It's like the same thing that would make someone want to climb a mountain or like row across an ocean. Like that's how I felt about just like regular things. And so this whole notion of like resting, especially when I was in my 20s and trying to build something, it was just so counterproductive in my mind. I couldn't view it. And now as I'm saying it to you, I think it's similar to if I were a race car driver and instead of going to the pit stop, I just kept going with like, tires that were like bald and like half blown up and all that stuff. Like I'm not going into the pit stop and get what I need for my pit crew. I'm just running around and I'm not going to win the race that way. But that's how I was trying to compete.
I love that analogy. We've been watching I don't know if you've seen it, the Formula One documentary on
Oh, I
Netflix.
haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's intriguing. It's interesting, but I just picture the whole engine just blowing
Yeah,
up.
it's the one little car that's flipping, just pieces everywhere. Yeah, that was me. Right, I
You're
was just
done. You
cruising
got
across.
no choice.
I'm done. I'm lucky to walk away from that. Right.
Yeah, yeah. But it gets to a certain point and it becomes a non-negotiable.
Yeah,
It has
absolutely.
to, right?
Yeah,
Especially with these autoimmune diseases, because you simply can't recover and get the rest you need until you turn out the lights earlier.
yeah, yeah.
But I want to get people hooked because we got some ideas in
Oh
how
yeah.
to help people sleep better. There's a lot that you can do throughout the day and leading up to actual sleeping that
Mhm.
can help you. Chris, you burn the midnight oil and woke up early. Did you
Yes.
ever have trouble staying asleep or did you hit the pillow and you were just out and you were good?
So, as you asked that, I'm thinking particularly when I was in college. For me, once like I went to sleep, I was asleep, but I was a light sleeper, so I'd pop up and go do what I needed to do. But what would get me is if I were going to classes and it was like a long lecture type of class. Karen, I am not proud of it. I got my best sleep. Something about a professor's like tone of voice just droning on about whatever the subject is. Just I mean it was like hearing like a soothing sound for me. I just felt like I was back in the womb. I just would sleep so deeply during those moments. And much love to all my professors in school. But I would just go to bed in their class. And it's not great. This is not my advice to anyone else, especially those who are still in school. But I'm just saying, for me, I would go to bed late, wake up early, and then just, I guess, take involuntary naps all throughout the day when I had things to do. So that's kind of what
Can
happened.
you fall asleep anywhere?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So now I have to ask, what's the most random place you fell asleep other than the classroom?
Uh, I used to take the train from Penn Station in Manhattan to my house in East Orange when I was in high school, and I would wake up in random towns all across New Jersey, like on a regular basis, just like I remember just call it, and if anyone's listening who's from that part of the country, they would understand this reference. I'd call my mom and say, "Hey, I'm gonna be late for dinner." Mind you, I lived in East Orange, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be late for dinner. I'm in Dover right now." So it's basically like the, the train just kept going way past my stop and like rode for another hour or so, and I just woke up in a random town. Everyone was nice. The conductor said, "Hey, kid, you missed your stop. Just walk across the platform, and I'll give you a little ticket thing, and you just go across." So it worked out. But yeah, slept in trains. Slept. I'm a minister now. Slept in church. This is like this when sleep was here. I never closed the door. I just said, "Come on in." So I went to sleep.
That's amazing. I wish I could be like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like I can't fall asleep anywhere. It takes
yeah.
me well, it literally used to take me hours to fall asleep.
I bet. Yeah, yeah. I get
And
it.
then once I was asleep, fine, I could sleep.
Right.
I was a marathon sleeper, I could do
I get
that.
you. That's real. I will say this. I haven't enjoyed sleeping in hotels that much, particularly like if I'm like on a business trip or something.
Yeah.
I don't that kind of like fully shut down. I don't really do that. But I sleep enough to, be rested the next day. But I guess maybe like my brain's like on security mode. I'm just like not all the way asleep. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, what was that sound? Like that kind of sleep, but I'm still able to function the next day.
I can fall asleep on a train or something because I'm just too nervous about,
Yeah,
well, I'm gonna end up in a random city. That would scare me.
right. Yeah. I thankfully I've never fallen asleep on an Amtrak because that would be
No.
the scariest thing.
Long on.
Or like welcome to Boston. Whoa, this is too far. Yeah.
So I've read a lot about what you can do during the day to help you sleep.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest things is exposing yourself to natural light early on in the day
Yeah, yeah.
because it just alerts everything. And
Hmm.
then because you're doing it early in the day, you have a full day to process and do
Yeah,
your thing. And then you're actually ready to go to sleep at night.
yeah.
But if you don't have that early on in the day, it just takes your brain and your body a little bit longer to
So
wake
true.
up.
So true.
But when it's snowy outside, I'm like, well, I don't
That's
really
the
want to
rub.
get out there, right?
Yeah, that's the rub. Because this philosophy works for me really well in the summertime.
Yeah.
Like I'm all for it. I love, waking up early and walking the dog first thing in the morning, all that stuff. But when you're waking up and it's gonna be another hour until the sun comes up, or it's cold outside, or it's snowing outside, like what you're describing, it makes it a little tougher. But what I will suggest is during those times, what I have found works for me is even if it's just like a video on YouTube, just like working out first thing in the morning. It doesn't have to be strenuous, just something that moves you around. I get my best sleep in the evening to the point where the days where I forget to work out in the morning, I have a tough time falling asleep at night because I didn't like wear myself out in the morning.
Not only wearing your muscles out, but
Hmm.
just understanding this is the time for activity.
Yeah,
So that when it is coming nighttime, your body's like, okay, I did what I needed to do. We can't our bodies can't, our minds can't differentiate between us staring at a computer all day
no
and
chance.
thinking we're working hard and actually doing physical movement.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, the screen time. It, I really believe we're all overstimulated, and if you have a job that requires you, I think about some lines of work where they're able to track if like you're not using your computer, so you kind of like have to always be at the screen available. Let's say 8 hours a day or whatever the structure is.
That's like horrible, Chris. But
It sounds so bad. Like I am not interested in that line of work whatsoever, whatever it is. But also just thinking about how hard it has to be for folks to wind down after the fact. Like you've stared at a screen. I remember when we were first teaching on Zoom, like when the quarantine started. And I was an English teacher, so if I taught 3 sections of my English class in a day, and each class was, an hour and change, I would need to go outside and just stare. I remember one afternoon just going outside just to stare at grass and trees. Like I just needed to see nature just because my eyes had been locked into a screen and this and inside light for several most of the day. So I just needed to go outside and just be able to you know touch grass and something. Just like be like, okay, I'm not just a cyborg yet. Like I need to be outside and feel like a human being.
well, and they say this Zoom interaction, even what you and I are doing, we don't get the oxytocin that
Right.
comes with the face to face or
Yes.
actual physical interaction. Even
Yes.
if we're not touching, there's
Yeah.
still like stuff happening where it's like you're getting more out of that conversation by
Hmm.
being in person than
Yeah.
through video. So that was part of the fatigue and exhaustion through the COVID phase because it was all Zoom.
Right.
And so what you're saying, it's like you need that natural light and just fresh air to be able to
Yeah.
offset some of that.
Yeah. No, it's these are all, and it's funny because I think these suggestions can sound really crunchy to people, and they sound like okay, I'll get natural light and I won't be on my phone, whatever. But like, no, honestly, this is a part of treating our bodies well. Like we know that our bodies require particular things. Like, just give it those things so you're optimizing its use.
Yeah. And you're talking about going out and looking at grass and on horizons. Everything goes back to hundreds of years ago.
Oh my
How
gosh.
did we live hundreds of years ago? Well,
Yeah.
they were literally looking out at the horizon. They're looking at all the trees. So, fun fact, not
Hmm.
fun, but a interesting fact
Yeah. Yeah.
is that nearsightedness is increasing at fastest rates
Come
ever
on.
because we are so looking at our
Yeah.
phones, our
Right.
computer screens that it's like we're not looking off into the distance like we used to be. I
Yeah.
mean, we could be hunting and gathering and
Yeah. You're looking for
foraging.
hundreds of yards ahead, right?
Yeah. So it's funny how even simple things like that can affect our sleep because it's just not
Yeah.
natural for
It's
us.
not natural. It's really not. I think that's really my whole thesis around technology use in general is how does it promote natural rhythms, or how does it try to carve out abnormal rhythms?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the issue with it is that it's not, and it's disrupting all of us. Look at this. You're always yawning.
No, it's I was like, this is the most appropriate time I've yawned is during the sleep episode.
But I think we have to talk about this because I've totally like no shame. Like I'm
Yeah,
not offended, but like
yeah.
you yawn throughout these episodes, and I could be that boring, and that's fair enough.
No,
But
it's not from boredom.
part of it's like, you are working all day. We come into these, and it's just like you sit, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay. I'm all of a sudden feeling a little tired, or it's
that's
like
it.
you're decompressing from the day, and there's
I
nothing
think
wrong with that.
it's the decompression, and for some reason, like, even though we're talking about, like, very, like, important things, it's also relaxing, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like we're having these conversations and my body's like, "Okay, yeah, like, let's talk about fatigue." It's like, "Oh, this is good. This is really nice." So that's where I'm at.
For sure. I had to call you out a little
Yeah, no,
bit.
I appreciate it. Call me in.
Oh, so what other interesting or like facts or things that have helped you just kind of deal with this phenomenon, or has it really been mostly around managing your schedule to get enough sleep?
Yeah, I think I've come to really believe that you have to start well with your day. And that could put I'll admit that that has at times put a ton of pressure on myself in terms of like how I start the day. So for example, I like to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. And so there's times where I'm more tired, or I'll try to like early morning debate with myself that I can sleep in or I can ignore my snooze button. Which is just very annoying to my wife, and like all the sound that my phone is going to make. It's like trying to wake me up, and it's not giving up, and I'm not giving in. So there we are. Um, but I think when you start your day with an intention, it allows the rest of the day to flow. So I really love. I mean, I was thinking about this in preparation for our conversation. To me, it's really important to wake up my mind and my soul first, and then wake up my body. And when I do those things, it really helps me be my best self throughout the day. and you're starting your day off with a series of good choices that continue to just like snowball into just like good choices throughout the day. You know,
Yeah.
so I think when you start your day with an intention, it just allows you to have that sort of framework that keep the party going in that regard versus starting the day frenetic or starting the day stressed out. So many of us, we talked about this in the previous episode. So many of us will start the day, and the first thing we do is look at our phone, right? So she won't mind me sharing this. Like the other morning, I guess yesterday morning when we were recording this, uh, was a Tuesday morning. I wake up and my wife goes, "The bridge in Baltimore collapsed." It's like the first thing she says, and I was like, I hear you. I can't start my day with that. Like I was like, I need to like in order for me to process that in a way that's healthy for me. I'm not an emergency respondent, right? Like it's not like the people who work in emergency services in Baltimore can't say, "Well, give me a minute." They need to address that immediately, right? But I, for my agency, with regard to that crisis, I was like, let me go into my routine, and then I can fully appreciate and approach and respect that problem the way it deserves to be, rather than me jumping into that, looking at my phone and checking Twitter and refreshing, and just getting a whole bunch of like partial information and filling in the gaps with my own freaking out. It's not going to be a healthy situation. So it's really as much as like breaking news is happening on our phones now much more than they were happening on our TVs a couple of generations ago. I try not to be a part of that cycle first thing in the morning because I think it really does dovetail into everything else.
Well, there's absolutely been studies out there as far as like when you look at your phone first thing, it boosts your cortisone in the afternoon, which means you're stressed. So
Stress.
you are, by picking up your phone and looking at it right away, going through any sort of social media, looking at the news, it's like you are setting yourself whether you know it or not, just
Right.
to be a bit more stressed, a bit more anxious, just those feelings that you don't want in the
Yeah.
afternoon. So it really is a simple thing to, well, maybe not simple to break
Yes.
that
Right.
habit,
Right. Right. I
but
don't know if it's still get a break. Right.
once I broke that habit, it was like, okay, because to your point, then you give yourself a chance to set the foundation for, and that's it up for the rest of the day.
There it is.
So tell me what, if you don't mind sharing, tell me what you're doing in your morning to really set yourself up for the day.
Yeah. So for me, I love to read the Bible first thing in the morning. And I used to read it on like an app on my phone, but once again, like I didn't want to engage with the phone because I was thinking about this sort of science behind it, and also like it would be so easy to go from my phone to like Instagram to Facebook to you know who won the game last night, and then
You
my
get more, it's like, oh, shoot.
oh yeah, and then it's like oh how did it become 7 a.m. I gotta get the kids to school, and like you lost the whole morning. So I'll like do a paper and pen with that, and then after I've done that, I'm able to then I grab my phone because I do Apple has a fitness app, so I do that on my in my living room, and now I'm moving around. I feel great. My kids are up by this point, so they want to like play wrestle and all this stuff before school. Maybe we watch like a couple highlights on TV. They want to watch. Sometimes they want to watch. We've been big into like the Bernie Mac show lately, so they all want to watch like the Bernie Mac show, like before you go to school. It's like there's not enough time. Oh, so all those things to me, and this is like not just for myself but as a parent too. Like I want to make sure that I have a responsibility to make sure that we're all leaving the house with good vibes and good energy. Like I think about this, Karen, when I lived in Brooklyn. I was walking to the J train one morning, and it had to be like 6:45 in the morning. It was super early, and this man was just screaming on the phone, cursing out whoever was on the other end of the phone. And I just thought to myself, is this last night's problem or today's problem? Like where did this problem start? Because to have this kind of negative energy first thing in the morning, this is the first person you're probably talking to that day. How could your day start this way? that was where my mind was. And I just feel like when I've taken care of everything I need to take care of, it allows me to deal with everybody else. So whether it's I'm on the subway, I'm on the highway, I'm on the street, wherever I am, dealing with other people who may not have the kind of routine I have, I'm now able to deal with their energy if they go left, and I'm also able to amplify good energy if they need that, you know? So I feel like if we all take care of our situation, then we can amplify good energy for everyone. But if we're all chaotic, we're also going to amplify chaos, which we already see. Like, you don't need me to tell you that. Just, look outside, you know?
Yeah, because if you're not ending your day well and you're starting your day off by whatever and in the thick of it,
Right.
it's like you have no chance to be able to mentally cope with just the day-to-day stressors.
Telling you.
Like you
Telling you.
got to take that time to level set, and that just puts you in a much different place
Mhm.
to deal with all the BS in the world that's gonna come
What's
at
that?
you.
It's because it's going to show up.
It is.
It's not a matter of if, it's when, you know?
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have any like rituals that help you sleep at night, or are you just kind of?
I mean, I do my little like phone app that says like, oh, your bedtime starts, in a couple of minutes.
Oh, sure.
I do that, but I sometimes take that as just like an advice. I don't always like use it as law for my life. But generally, I like to be able to like I'll say I won't even say generally. I'll say ideally. Ideally, I'll put my boys to sleep. I'll come to my room. I like to read a portion of a book that I'm reading, and then allow myself to kind of get like heavy eyed, and then I just go to sleep. So like I want to read to the point where like my eyelids are like 10 pounds each, and then I close the book up and I go to bed. So I try to read something like fiction at night because I feel like if I'm reading like heavy books or like academic books, I'm not going to be paying attention to this. It's just I need something that's more just like the beauty of words rather than like in 1844 they did this. Like that's too much. I'm not processing that. I read that in the morning. I'm not processing that at night.
I'll have my nonfiction book, and then I'll just be like, that's too much. I'm gonna pick up my
That's right.
like hearted
Right.
one.
Give me some light.
But that's my favorite is reading till the point where your eyelids are 10 pounds, and you,
Yeah.
especially for me, is like I have a monkey brain, so I'm always thinking
It's
about what
everywhere.
I
Yeah.
need to do, right? So by reading it, it kind of
Close you out.
calms everything out. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm so tired I can't think about anything else.
Yeah. And I love
So,
you mentioned it you mentioned it earlier where you were talking about like tea without caffeine because I think we don't give enough sort of like credence to the sense of like really slowing down. And the reason why like I'm an avid tea drinker, um I've tried to like stop drinking coffee because I used it as like essentially a drug of choice when my kids were little. It's just like I just was drinking coffee so much. But I think tea forces you to slow down. Whereas coffee, you're like, you're not even necessarily finishing all your coffee, but you're drinking it to go like charge up to do whatever the activity is. Tea forces you to just like sit and take it easy. And it's just a very like slow life beverage. And I think if people drank tea more often, particularly in the evening, a good like chamomile or something, a good peppermint. Not a green tea, even if it has low caffeine, it's still gonna like stimulate you enough to like start you up. So I wouldn't suggest green tea at night, but it's a nice tea that kind of like cools you out, like a rooibos, something like that. Drink that at night, you're calming down.
yeah. So temperature is huge in sleeping.
Yes.
So warm tea, it just gives you the time and space. Plus, it feels good. Also, just a warm, hot shower or bath is enough. Get your system ready
Yeah.
to. The CDC even says anywhere from 60 to 65 degrees at night is enough to like
that.
cool you down. How do you feel about that, Chris? Is that your pull for you? Is that good
That
vibes for you?
that's tremendously cold to me. But but I know they're right because one of the things I have found myself doing, even though like the folks watching this are like yawns anyway. But when it's cold, I yawn so much. Like I'm just like I'm so tired in winter. I'm just like, oh man, it's cold outside. Like I would just yawn. And I don't know if that's like an evolutionary trait. I don't know where that comes from. But I do know that like I fully believe that CDC in this regard because I know when I'm cold, I'm just yawning. So it has to be right. That has to be right.
One of my favorite animals is the bear, and I think it's because they hibernate over the winter.
Oh yeah. The bear is my goal in life. Can I tell you? Like, it's my goal in life.
Well,
Be a
you're
bear.
gonna think we're crazy. So this year we have kept our thermostat at 63 during the day, and we
Oh
work from
man.
home, but that's why I wear a lot of layers.
Yeah, layers. Yeah, yeah.
And then at night we put it down to 60, and it's been the only challenge is if I have to go to the bathroom, or sometimes my nose feels really cold.
Yeah,
But
right.
when I'm under the covers, I'm
Oh, it's
golden.
amazing. It's amazing. That's the thing. You, I don't know if the CDC recommend this, but get you a good blanket. You know what I mean? Like that's really a key. I don't. Let me ask you this: well, how do you feel about like weighted blankets? I seen that was like a fad a couple of years ago, but like, how do you feel about this? Like, is this something that you
I
would look into?
I've heard wonderful things about them,
Yeah.
especially if you have anxiety or
Right.
tend to have a monkey brain like me. It
Yeah.
just kind of, the extra weight is
Right.
supposed to just help your body settle.
Right.
I have never tried one, but I've heard amazing things about them.
Got you. It just sounds like a hug. It sounds really nice. You know,
Oh, right?
it doesn't it just sound like I wondered like I was like, how heavy are we talking? You know, when I heard weighted blanket, I was like, because I get up after use the bathroom. I'm just trapped under this thing. I don't want to do this. You know, like
I think you probably have enough muscle to be
I
able
hope
to.
so, right? It's just like oh, I got like the extra large weighted blanket. It's like 80 pounds or something. You know, just
But
weigh me
that
down.
you bring up a good point because, like, if you have joint pain and whatnot, I
Right.
don't know if that would be too intense for you.
I
Because there were
wonder.
times in my life where it's like I talked about how I can't lift my arms and any
Yeah.
added pressure. Like that might not be a good situation,
Yeah. Yeah.
but something to try if you're feeling fine with it.
You're right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I've also heard amazing things about just aromatherapy in
Yeah.
general.
Mm-hmm.
Lavender is supposed
That's
to
the
make
one.
you relax, whether you want to go the full blown essential oils or whatever,
Right.
but also just lotions and
Mm-hmm.
balms that you can rub on that just help you. Even
Cool you
if it
down.
doesn't seem like it's all right, I'm gonna put this lotion on or use a heavy blanket, but if you're struggling, it's like, well, just try a few different
Yeah.
things and maybe a combination can help just settle
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Absolutely. I think it's worth looking into like what works for you and just really making bedtime like a treat and making relaxation really like special for you. I think it should be something to look forward to rather than the mindset that I had that I don't think I'm alone in, which is like, oh, fine, I'll go to bed. Like I have to. Like, no, I think it should be something we get to enjoy. It's like you get to rest. You know, it's a gift.
It is a gift, and especially with autoimmune disease, it's a gift to recover and recharge. And there's nothing to feel guilty about
No.
because when you are giving yourself that time to rest and sleep, you are setting yourself up to be so much more productive the next day. And you're going to get so much more out of the next day if you're giving yourself that gift.
Oh yeah, no question, no question. That's it's funny. I will sometimes jokingly thank past versions of me because like let's say for example if I made my breakfast smoothie and I said oh I'm gonna save this for later and I come home and I'm like thanks past me and I drink the rest of it because like that decision I made in the morning helped make my afternoon worthwhile, you know? So just thinking about if you're taking care of yourself today, not just for today, but so that tomorrow you will thank you, you know?
I've heard a lot about this in self-improvement and self-development. Think about how your future self will think back on this moment.
Yes.
And but I love what you're saying because it brings it full circle, especially as we talk about gratitude. It's like, oh, I thanked myself 6 hours ago or whatever
Right,
for
right.
doing this. And what a way to reinforce positive habits. Like,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I love that.
Of course, of course. Yeah, yeah. Because you have to be kind to yourself. I think all of this
Yeah.
really boils down to an act of kindness towards yourself that hopefully, ideally, will spill into how you treat other people. It's very hard to be kind to people if you're not kind to yourself.
Yeah. And you have to do the foundational things. Getting enough. I'm the crabbiest, most irritable person when I
Oh,
don't have enough sleep or rest.
that's
Like
terrible.
it
Right.
is terrible. I'm terrible. Like
No,
I don't
I was talking about inversely. I don't know. I haven't seen you sleepy. Like, you're right, Gary. You're awful.
no, I know I am, but it's like I don't want to be that
No.
person, you
Yeah,
know?
no, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. And in
Especially
order
when you
for
have
us to
young
be our
kids.
best self. Second?
Especially when you have young kids. It's
Oh,
like
right.
one's level is just
Oh,
not where it
that's it.
needs to be.
No, for real. And yeah, you just we want to be our best selves, and it's hard to do that. I mean, after all, there's a reason why like sleep deprivation is a form of torture, right? Like this there's
Yeah.
a reason why people have been subject to that. So we know that in order to be your best self and to take care of the people who are really like who, the people who really are depending on you, little children and folks like that, it's essential for us to get our rest.
Chris, for any of our younger fellow autoimmune strivers and thrivers,
Yeah.
what would you recommend and or um, say to a younger version of yourself about sleep?
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have? I would say to number one, understand that you're in a marathon, you're not in a sprint. So even if it feels like this autoimmune disorder is slowing you down and everyone is running past you, just be slow, be steady, be intentional, do what you can, and understand that part of what you have to do and what you get to do is rest. So you're not going to eat the whole whale in one bite. It's not going to happen, but do what you can today, get your rest, get back to it tomorrow. I know you're ambitious. I know you got a lot of drive. I know you really want to accomplish that dream of yours. It's not going anywhere. It may be slowed down. You may not get there as soon as you thought, but by the time you get there, you'll actually appreciate it more than if you got it the time you wanted it initially. So just take your time, take your rest.
I think those are some of the hardest words to hear at schooling or career, your big dreams are.
Yeah.
I want to say, promise you, it'll be worth it if you can actually and give yourself some grace. You need to buckle down and study for an exam, then it's okay to take an extra hour or two later. Like,
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up about it. It'll come back. But the more you can take care of yourself by getting the adequate sleep and rest, the more you're going to be able to accomplish in just your day to day.
That's it. That's really, really it. I really enjoy this conversation too because I think that we have such a funky relationship with sleep in our culture now where we're all just so hyperactive and overstimulated, but this is an essential thing, especially for us within this autoimmune community. But for everyone on the planet, you have to go to sleep at some point. You got to get your rest.
Absolutely. So, Grace, thank you for doing this as always today. For everyone else, thank you for listening. Drop us a comment with your favorite sleep tricks, hacks, and or just what you're coping with in sleeping. And we'll do the best we can to give you resources and advice to help. But thank you, and thank you, Chris.
Always a pleasure, Karin. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, guys.